When was there a time in your life that you thought, hey, you know what? This would be really awesome if it wasn't for people. Like, this would be such a great experience if it wasn't for people. I remember a time way back, I was young, and Kimberly was young, and she was teaching at this elementary school, and I remember I was in her classroom just kind of helping her out and kind of cleaning stuff up or whatever we were doing at that time. And a principal came in and started just kind of talking to us and everything. And she had a rough day and had a rough day of just mostly with parents, just a lot of conflict, different things, but it's all different kinds of stuff. But she's just one of those days where she's just being inundated by parents all left and right all over the place. And she kind of said with a smile, I remember it's kind of with a smile, she goes, you know what, being a principal would be great if it wasn't for parents, you know? And you know, she believed in parents taking the initiative to direction in the lives of the kids and things like that. But at that moment in time in her life that she was like, she had a long day and she was tired. She's like, man, I love my job if it wasn't for people. You ever felt that way? You ever felt like, you know what, I would love my job. I love my job if everybody would just leave me alone, right? I would love my job if I didn't have to deal with clients. I would love my job if I didn't have to deal with management. You know, it's not just jobs either. It's just in life in general. I would love going on this vacation if we weren't going on vacation with them. That would be great, right? You ever felt like that before? So when we think about this statement, this one of our core statements here at River Run, that moving closer to God moves you closer to people, that last part can sometimes feel like, you know, when God is nudging us to say yes, our hearts and everything inside of us is going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to move closer to people. People are messy. I'm messy. This is hard. I don't want to do it. It's one of the reasons why we have that rationalization of like, you know what? I don't need to have a relationship with God with other people because I really don't want to have a relationship with God with other people, especially all these other Christians that drive me nuts. I'd rather just go by myself, go to the beach and start, you know, reading the scriptures and doing it on my own. I'd rather just be left alone. I like moving closer to God, but I really don't want to move closer to people. But we talked about last week that, you know, if you do that, and if you authentically move closer to God, and you start opening up the scriptures, you're going to start sensing God moving you towards other people. And you're going to go, God, let's not ruin this really good relationship we have together by making me go be nice to them and reconcile with them and engage with them. Let's just keep it just you and me. But it's just that it's not the way that it works. It's not the way that God works and operates in our life. Now, there's a flip side of it too. Some of us, you know, maybe that's not one of our things, and we love connecting with people, moving closer to people. But have you ever moved closer to people the wrong way? You ever kind of like moved people, like maybe they really ticked you off and made you upset, so you're like, man, I'm going to tell them how it is, you know, and I'm going to let them know. And you just kind of hammer them, and you let it loose because you're mad, you're frustrated, you're angry, all of those things. Or have you ever moved towards people and you're there you want to help them? You know, I just want to help you. And then so you begin to try to fix them or fix it for them. And as you're trying to help them, you begin to realize by their body language that they're actually clenching up inside. You're actually like saying stuff that's really actually making them very aggravated and very upset, you know? Maybe it's because, you know, we didn't really understand their situation, so we're trying to speak into something that we don't know anything about. Sometimes we may feel like our own insecurity, and so it feels like a little awkward or tension, so we kind of throw something out there that's really not really helpful. It may be helpful to us, but it's actually more hurtful to them. Yeah, I think we've all been there before in all these different kinds of areas when it comes to moving closer to people. I don't want to move closer to people. Move closer to people, hammer them, or move closer to people and hurt them. It's like, you know what? It's a whole lot better just to not deal with people. If you've ever experienced that or ever felt that way, then you're in great company. There's a lot of us in this room, but not only that, but there was one individual, one guy who is like an icon. He's been like a household name for the last 3,000 plus years that has gone through all of these different kinds of struggles and journey with God when it comes to moving closer to God, moves you closer to people. And his name is Moses. Maybe you've heard of him before. It's kind of a big deal, big name. name is Moses. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of look at how God has kind of shaped Moses and his journey through life, through this whole concept of moving closer to God moves you closer to people, and just some of the struggles he had and some of the things that he learned along that way that I think would be really helpful to us. But before we kind of get into it, let me kind of give you a little bit of backdrop of his history, just in case you aren't really familiar with him. You can find more information, detailed information about him in Exodus in particular, and then on out through the next 4 books of the Bible. There, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But there, what we find there about Moses and who he is, was he was born to these Hebrew parents. During that time in history, the Hebrews were an enslaved people group to the Egyptians. They were enslaved. They were slaves. And they were enslaved to basically do hard labor on behalf of the Egyptians, to build their cities for them, to do all the grunt work for them, all the infrastructure stuff for them. And so he was born into that. But he was also born at a particular time when the population of the Hebrews was really growing. So there's a big population increase there. The Egyptians, the leadership, was looking at this and seeing this, and they're always thinking about, stuff. And they begin to realize that, hey, if this continues to go on, then they're going to be so populated that they are going to overwhelm us. And there's going to be a civil war, and this is going to turn really nasty. So they start a depopulation policy. And that policy is kill every male born. All right? So Moses was born into that. Mother loved him, tried to hide him for a little while, but it was getting to a point where there's just no way he was going to be able to hide him. And so she basically kind of, for the most part, just kind of left it up to the Lord to, like, Lord, you do whatever you do with my baby boy. Puts him in a basket, puts him in the Nile, goes down the Nile, and there's Pharaoh's daughter. And she sees the basket and sees this baby. She falls in love with this baby. Her heart goes out to this baby. And so she determines to adopt this child, to bring this child into her home. And she gives the child a name, Moses, gives him an Egyptian name. So Moses grows up, right? He grows up in this where his native people are all oppressed, but he's growing up in the palace, in the nice. He's eating good food. He's getting the best education, the best physical education, fighting education, best intellectual, academic education, and he's living the good life. So he grows up there, and he gets into his early young adults. And like most of us, when we kind of get into our young adult years, we start asking big questions about life, especially our identities, which I'm sure he probably did. He grew up there, spent his whole life there in the palace or in royalty, in this whole Egyptian kind of culture. But he knew that he was a Hebrew. He knew he was different. He wasn't like everybody else. And looking out, I'm sure he's looking out and all that and seeing the work labor and understanding that the work enslaved people were his native people. And so I'm sure he's kind of like trying to figure out all these things about his own identity and all that sort of stuff. So he decides to visit his native people, to go out amongst them. And so as he's going out among them, he notices that there's the Egyptian who is in a fight, who's fighting this Hebrew. Okay, so he sees this, and he sees this sense of looking around and sees this sense of injustice to his fellow Hebrews, and so he takes things into his own hands. To save his fellow Hebrew, he goes and he kills that Egyptian. So the Egyptian's dead, saves the Hebrew. The Egyptian, he buries his Egyptian, and goes on his way. And then the next day he's out there again and go visit my native people. He goes out there, and he sees now 2 Hebrew people fighting. And so now, he used his physical skills, and now he's going to use his kind of mediation skills now with these 2 Hebrews. And he says to them, hey, brothers, like, hey, bros, hey, brothers, I'm one of you. Hey, why are you fighting each other? And it didn't go the way that he thought it would go. They actually turned on him. They turned on him and looked at him and said, hey, who made you ruler or judge over us, preppy? That's my Saved by the Bell kind of in there. Because he was, he grew up in eating good food. He had all the good stuff. And here these guys were like, hey, we're slumming it. We're slaves. We're working hard. And then all of a sudden you come down from your, nice little fancy place to tell us, hey, that you're here to be our Savior and all that sort of stuff. And then you're just going to walk away and go back up to your fancy home kind of deal. I'm sure that's kind of probably what they were kind of experiencing. That wasn't the response that he was kind of thinking about. I thought that was going to happen. And then one of them says, so are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian you did yesterday? And so then he's like going, oh, no. Now everybody knows I killed this Egyptian. So he knows what that means for him. Even though he grew up, in the circles of royalty, he was still a Hebrew. He knew he was going to die. So what did he do? He took off and he ran. He got out of Egypt. He went into the wilderness, and he began to make a pretty good life for him. He got a wife, got some kids, and he starts kind of being a shepherd. In fact, in Exodus chapter 3, verse 1, it says this: one day, Moses was tending the flock. All right. Now, when you're thinking about, oh man, I just don't want to deal with people. Like, how many of you have ever thought, you know what, I would love just to leave my job and maybe just go and do something where I don't deal with people? Like, I think Moses is like living his good life here. And I was like, man, that was a debacle. That was a mess. Like, tending sheep is a lot better than tending people. Managing the sheep is a lot better than, dealing with having to deal with people. And I'm sure he's probably at this place. He's kind of like, doing his life, enjoying his family, enjoying his wife and what he's doing and all that. But then there was one day where he was out eating his little peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and having a little break and all that sort of stuff. And then, right after this, we see that God moves closer to him. Y'all know the story. Let me just kind of rephrase it real quick. The burning bush, right? God comes in this burning bush. Not uncommon for burning bushes to happen in the heat of the desert, but this one's different. It's not being consumed. And so he's like, what any of us would do. We would like sit there and kind of go, wait a minute. Staring at it for a while, knowing, man, this thing is not burning up at all. So what does he do? He does what we all would do. We all kind of go like, I got to check this out. And then he comes up, and as he comes up, and then it's just like out of nowhere, the Lord makes an introduction. And he tells him, Moses, I am God. I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I've seen what's been going on with my people, and I've come to bring them out of that enslavement, to bring them to the place that was promised to Abraham and to his lineage after that. It's time to make that happen. So he gives just this introduction. It's a pretty brief introduction. Like the first time, you meet God, and God's like, hey, you know who I am? I'm God. I'm the God. You remember all the things that I told your ancestors? Well, it's time to make do. I'm ready to make do on that. And then right after that, here in verse 10, this is what he says here. God says to him, now go. Now go. It's like, have you ever been in your life where you feel like, you know what, man, everything's good, everything's nice, I've got my family, I got my tending my sheep, I'm not dealing with anybody. God comes along and says, hey, you know what, it's time to interrupt your comfort. Let me make my introduction. I'm God. Now that we've made that introduction, now go. Go. Now that you've moved closer to me, it's now time for you to go back and move closer back to your people in Egypt. So now go, for I'm sending you to Pharaoh. Wait a minute, we just met, right? You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. But Moses protested, all right? But God, I don't want to do that. You want me to have a conversation? It's going to be a bad, it's going to work out and all that. I don't want to do that. So he does what I think a lot of us do. We protest. Like who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? He's like, there was once a time when he was young, like probably a lot of us, who felt like invincible, until something happens and we try to leverage our skills, leverage our talents, and leverage stuff, and things don't go the way that we wanted to go, and things get a mess, and then we kind of become a little bit more humble. And he's kind of at that state of humility here where he's like, hey, who am I? But the God answered, he goes, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. Why? because I will be with you. This is important to understand when it comes to moving closer to other people or doing the things that God's called us to do. God never just sits there and says, hey, I want you to go. Really, what God is basically saying is, hey, this is what I'm doing. Come follow me. Hey, I'm going to Egypt. You come to Egypt. I'm going to be with you. God never tells you to go do anything. In fact, if God told us to go do stuff without him leading us, we would just make a mess. So he tells him, hey, don't worry about it. You're going to go, but you're not going alone. You're not doing this on your own. I'm going to be with you. In fact, I'm going to be doing the heavy lifting. And this is going to be the sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. All right. This is one of the funniest lines in Scripture. You're like, how's it so funny? Think about it this way. What if God came to the Patriots and said, hey guys, here's the deal. You're going to win tonight. You're going to win. I know you're 4.5 underdog, but you know what? You're going to win tonight. And you go, well, give us a sign. What's the sign that we know that you're going to help us to win tonight? You know, this is the sign. The sign is you will have a parade. You're going to have a parade. That's the sign. And we may be thinking, wait a minute. Don't I need some assurance before the thing rather than after the deal? Right? Well, that's what he's basically saying here. Hey, don't worry about it. I got it. Let me give you a sign. Let me tell you how I know that this is going to happen. And you can be so comfortable about this, is that you're going to be back here and you're going to be worshiping God. That's all good and dandy, God. But I need some good proof now, right? And so he goes on, and here, into the next verse here. But Moses protested again. That's not good enough. I'll be with you. I got you. But he's like, hey, whoa. Okay, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them the God of your ancestors sent me to you, they'll ask me, what's his name? Then what should I tell them? And God replied to Moses, I am. I am who I am. I mean, he's just trying to let him know that, hey, you got good backing here. I'm leading you. You trust me. Well, who am I trusting? I am trusting I am. Okay, now you think about, that's pretty cocky. Hey, somebody comes to me and says, hey, what's your name? I am. There is no other name that would describe me. If they did, it would just diminish my greatness. Right? Well, that's what God is basically telling him. I am. I mean, all powerful, all knowing. I'm the one who gets things done. Not your skill sets, not your abilities, not Pharaoh's skill sets, not Pharaoh's abilities, nobody. I'm the one who gets stuff done. And if I say that it's going to get done, it's going to get done because I am is here. So say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent me to you. And tell them that their God of their ancestors, of Abraham and Jacob and Isaac is sending you. The very one, if you remember, it was promised to Abraham that he'll come back someday and bring you out. Well, he's coming. It's time. Tell them that's who you're representing, who sent you. And then he says in verse 16 again, okay, well then now go. All right, it's a great little chat. Now it's time to go. All right. Now, then he goes on, he kind of tells them, what are you going to do when he gets there? Hey, when you go, I want you to meet with the elders. You meet with the elders, then you're going to go you're going to tell them who I am, what's going on here. Then you're going to go to Pharaoh. And then you're going to go to Pharaoh and you're going to tell Pharaoh, hey, let my people go. And you know what? He's not going to let you go because he's too arrogant to let a bunch of slave people. And also, you're his economic engine. So he's not going to let you go until I give him a really mighty hand in order to force you out, where they're basically begging to let you go. But you need to go. And then we see right after that in chapter 4, verse 1, what did Moses do? He protested again. Now, don't be hard on him, because I know I've protested a lot with God with the things that he's wanted me to do. I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. You're going to do it. Don't worry about it. I got you. I am is with you. Okay, I'm still scared. I feel like this is going to be the time you're like going to say something and you're going to let me down, and all of these things. So Moses was just kind of having that same thing. But he goes, but what if they won't believe me or listen to me? What if they say, the Lord never appeared to you? I think that's pretty valid. I think that's a pretty valid protest. And then the Lord then goes on and basically says, hey, you see the staff that I gave you? Throw it on the ground. So he throws it on the ground, and it turns into a what? A snake. He grabs the snake, grabs it, and it becomes a staff again. He said, hey, if they don't believe that, then they'll believe this. Put your hand in the coat. Okay, take it out. Oh, it's leprosy. It's all changed. Looks really nasty and ugly, you know. Now put it back in. He puts it back in, and he said, take it back out, take it back out. And he says, see, and it's all healed and looks good. Show them that. And so if they don't believe the first one, believe the second one. If they don't believe those two, then you know what? Go get a cup of water or something like that. Go down by the Nile, grab some water, take it out, and pour it onto the ground. And then once it hits the ground, it's going to be blood. It's going to be an epic show. All right. So they're going to, if they don't believe those things, you know, if they don't believe the first one, then the next two ones and all of those things. And so he says, you know, but you need to go. And then he goes on and he says this. He says, but Moses pleaded with the Lord. He said, man, still not good enough. I'm still scared. I still don't want to go back. I still don't want to do this. It sounds like a horrible assignment. Oh, Lord, I'm not very good with words. I've never have been, and I'm not now. Even though you have spoken to me, I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled. I'm not really skilled, God. I don't have the skill sets, God. So why are you telling me to go do something that I don't have the skill sets, God? Well, then the Lord asked Moses, well, then who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord, the I am? And then he goes on here in verse 12. He says, now go, all right? Like numerous times, time to go. And then what he says, it reminds him, hey, I will be with you. The one whose I am, the one who turns staffs into snakes and leprosy into healedness and water to blood on the ground, and the one who, you know, who is called I am. That's who you're going with, not bad company, okay? And then I will be with you, and I will instruct you in what to say. But Moses again pleaded, Lord, please send anyone else. I just don't want to do this. So the Lord goes on, and then he gets a little upset, and then the Lord became angry with Moses. All right, he said, what about your brother, Aaron, the Levite? I know he speaks well. So God's like saying, dude, stop the dang excuses. I know he speaks well. And look, he's on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to do. And so they finally go. And a people that were enslaved became free. Not because of anything that Moses did or because of what Aaron did. It was because they just finally went with the Lord, did what the Lord told them to do. Do you know why Moses is so great? Moses really did two things. That's it. Two things. That's it. Okay? What were those two things? Number one, let my people go. All right. That's all he had to do. What's the other thing that he had to do? Do this. That's it. That's all he had to do. Who did the other stuff? God did. He's like, don't overcomplicate it. You know, he was going back thinking, what do I say? How do I say it? How do I get them to believe me? How do I get them to trust me? How do I get the Man, wasn't his job. Wasn't his job. That's I am's job. So when we move closer to people, when we do the things that God calls us to do, we got to understand what's his job and what's our job. Oftentimes, we tend to think the whole enchilada is our job, when sometimes it's just, hey, let my people go. Or, you know, put the stick up. And he just did what God told him to do. And that was at that moment that you begin to see a shift in Moses and all through that, because he began, if you go and look at his life, you see a guy who you see a journey of this trust in the Lord from, no way, There's no way I'm going to go. To, I can't speak. To Aaron speaking for him. But then if you keep going and looking at his life, guess what? Aaron speaks less, and who speaks more? Moses. And then after a while, Aaron never says anything. Moses does. Why? Because he comes to his place in his life that he just trusts the Lord from all the things by saying go. You never learn to trust a God if you don't ever say yes and you don't go. That's where we learn and we see, hey, you know what? If God's moving me closer to that person, it's really up to him what those outcomes are. My job is to engage in that person the way that he would want me to engage with them. Now, there are times, though, that, we engage with other people and things don't go so hot because maybe we don't let God lead us in that engagement. In fact, there was a time when Moses, he was leading, they were in the wilderness, and they were coming closer to the end of their long journey through the wilderness, and they were tired, the people were tired, they were thirsty, and they wanted water. They were famished, and then they just started, we're going to die. And then they're like, hindsight 2020, like the good old days syndrome kind of deal. Like, oh, back when we were in Egypt, we had all this incredible food, and it was so great, and all that sort of stuff. And they were already faded memories of the oppression that they were dealing with and everything. And so then Moses and Aaron, they just fall on their knees before the Lord. And then you see this kind of happen here, what the Lord tells them to do here. Go to that next piece there. You and Aaron, so he gives them the solution here. You and Aaron must take the staff and assemble the entire community. That's it. Take your staff. Hey guys, show up. That's all. All right? And then as the people watch, so the people are just watching, you got your staff. And speak to the rock over there, that one right there. And it will pour out its water. That's all you do. All right? Hey, people, come on. We're going to go to the rock over there. God's going to give us water like he's already done before. He'll do it again. And then as everybody's watching, say, okay, rock, give us some water. And the water would come out. All right? You will provide enough water from the rock to satisfy the whole community and their livestock. So Moses did as he was told. He took the staff from the place where it was kept before the Lord. Everything's checking out really good so far. All right, and then we see, going on to the next part here. Then he and Aaron summoned the people to come and gather at the rock. And then this is where it kind of goes south. All right? Sometimes we can go hey, I want you to go and engage in this relationship. But then we don't go into that relationship or go into that conversation with the Lord. We go into that conversation without him. And I think this is what happened with him here. He was only supposed to gather the people together, speak to the rock, give them water, and go on. Not to add a little bit of commentary here. You rebels! You bunch of morons! You idiots! He shouted. And then, man, once we kind of start, our hearts really start getting wacky, right? Must me and Aaron do everything for you? All right. They're already like, guys like, dude, you didn't do anything except for raise your stick and say, let my people go. And I did everything else. So already he's letting his own emotions, his own thoughts lead him into the confrontation with the people and not allowing God to lead in that moment. Listen, you rebels, he shouted, must we bring you water from this rock? Then Moses raised his hand. Wow. And what does he do? Does he speak to it? No. He whacked it. Well, bam. I'm sure he whacked it once and went, oh, that didn't work. And then he whacks it again. And God in his grace just goes, all right, we'll deal with this afterwards kind of deal. And the water goes out. Okay? And so it gushes out, so the entire community and their livestock drank their fill. Now, Moses and Aaron, they're leaders. All they're supposed to do is just reflect God. That's all they were supposed to do. Just do what God tells them to do. Just reflect him. But what they did was they reflected something different, something angry, selfish, something, prideful. Must we do this? All of that sort of stuff. And so here it goes in the next verse here then. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel. That's all we're supposed to do. We're only supposed to, when we go into relationships with other people, we just demonstrate the holiness of God. And what does that mean? That means a lot of times it's just doing what the Lord wants us to do in that conversation or in that relationship. But they allowed their own emotions, their pride, and all that kind of get in their way, that then as leaders begin to kind of confuse everybody about that. And then he says, you will not lead them into the land I'm giving them. There were consequences to that, you know. You didn't hold me holy. Once you do that, then that begins, as a leader, begins to create a certain amount of confusion about who I am and what am I about. And you're just supposed to do what you're supposed to just trust me and do what I'm telling you to do, like you've always been doing. And it's always worked pretty well, right? But this time you didn't. But here's the thing. How many of y'all have like exercised like all relational interactions in your life with absolute, complete perfection? Right? Yeah, how many of you didn't have the conversation that you should have had? How many of you did have the conversation you should have had, but you shouldn't have done it the way you did it? Yeah, right? We've all been there. So when we say yes to God, one of the things that we also need to understand too is this, is always say yes to God's grace when you get it wrong. Okay? Sometimes we don't want to interact with other people because we get it wrong. We don't want to interact with people because it got messy. And so we just begin to say no. And we begin to retreat. Rather than what we really should do is say yes to the grace of God. God, man, I biffed that. I shouldn't have. You're right. I shouldn't have yelled at him. You're right. You're the one who makes the water come out. I don't do that. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your grace. And then you know what we do? We keep saying yes. Because we keep learning, we keep growing. Sometimes it's a little bit messy because sometimes we kind of mess it up, and that messes up with them. That makes it a little bit harder. But you know what? If we're willing to persevere and willing to, accept where we made it, where we did wrong, where we trust the Lord in our own frailty and our own imperfections, and take over God's grace and His love for us, and to live in that, then we continue to pursue that relationship, and we continue to say yes. But we got to live in God's grace. And that's what Moses did. Moses continued, even after all of those things, continued. He didn't just drift away from God, drift away from his people. He continued to lean into the Lord. And he continued to grow, and he continued to trust. And that's why he is so fantastic today, not because he is a remarkable human being that did extra human stuff. He learned to trust the Lord and to say yes to the Lord, and to not overstep that yes in order to press and do something on his own without the guidance and the leading of the Lord. And that's what made him so wonderful. It was the reason why God chose him. Was he perfect? No. But he was a guy who kept growing, kept pursuing, kept maturing, kept growing in his trust, allowing the Lord to lead. And even when he messed it up, like most of us would go golly, God, that's a little harsh on him. He finally blew the gasket on a bunch of people who are whiners and complainers for 40 years. I think I would have blown it a long time ago, right? But it was even in that moment, though, even that one moment, that God was sharing with him and showing him that anytime I tell you to go and you add to that, that causes hurt and more confusion. Just trust me. And when we do mess up, we should just go, I messed up. And we continue to go, and we continue to say yes, and we continue to learn to listen to him and the way that he guides us into how to interact in these certain relationships that we have. We serve better, we listen better, we allow God, we go into those things and go, I don't know how this is going to end up, I don't know how it's going to happen, but you know what, Lord, you're leading me into this, and so you're the God of the outcomes, I'm the person of obedience, that I just say yes to you and let you do what you do after I raise the staff, or I say, let my people go, or whatever you're calling me to do. I let you lead into that. And God is always good. Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 5 says this. So Moses, I love this, the servant of the Lord. Who does he serve? He serves the Lord. And what does that mean to serve the Lord? Serving the Lord really just means just do what I tell you to do. Don't say no and don't add to. Just trust me. Okay, Lord, I'll do exactly what you want me to do. That is what it means to be a servant of the Lord. It's so simple. It's so basic. And sometimes we get it wrong, and that's when we kind of go back to making it simple, making it basic. Yes, sir. Whatever you want me to do, sir, and whatever you don't want me to do, yes, sir, I won't do it and all that. The servant of the Lord died there in the land of Moab, just as the Lord had said. And then finally here, the last couple of verses there in Deuteronomy, at the end of the life of Moses, there has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Early on, when he first met the Lord, he didn't even want to look at the Lord. You should go back and look at that. And then later on, he's like, I want to see your face. I want to know you. And then he says to the Lord, hey, if you're not going with us, we're not going. Because I've learned that I don't go anywhere without you. You lead. And that was after building that relationship with the Lord, knowing who he is, knowing that he could trust him, knowing that he knows that God, who is I am, knows what he's doing. And he got to a point, instead of trying to figure out how am I going to manage this, how am I going to do this, all that sort of stuff, he just realized, wait a minute, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I'll just do it. I'll do whatever you want me to do, serving the Lord, face to face to God, just that intimacy with him, stepping out in faith into those relationships and whatever he wants him to do, in a way that says yes, but allows the Lord to lead into that. The Lord sent him to perform the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of all Israel. How did he do that? Okay, yes, sir. How did he do that? Let my people go. God did all the rest. So as we kind of take this time to really kind of think through some of these things, and if you're new here, what we do is we love to just take a little bit of space and just kind of process these things with the Lord. Whatever the Lord just kind of is laying on your heart, or whatever you're thinking about this time. And we do it in kind of different ways. You can do it right there, just talking to the Lord, processing things with the Lord. I don't know what he's doing in your heart. God does different things in all of us. That's why he's in each of us, because there's so much nuance to what each and every us are dealing with and going through in our lives. But we all do better when we allow him to kind of guide us through that. So you can do that right there. We have communion on the sides where you see the little candles over there. We do that every single week. First day of the week, every single Sunday. It's the first day of the week. It's always good to start off moving closer to a God who is willing to come into our existence and into humanity, and our God who gave his life for us so we can be with him forever, that he can be a God that can guide us, that we don't have to try to just rely on our own skill sets and stuff. We have the great I am to lead us. And that was all made possible through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. It's pretty awesome. So we take that to remember those things. We also have our prayer partners. Man, sometimes, again, we see that all throughout Scripture is God loves it when people move closer to him. Not just a bunch of individuals, but people. Prayer is just a wonderful time to come together with other people, to talk to God on whatever's going on in your heart. It may not have anything to do with what I'm talking about this morning. That's okay. It's on your heart. But there's some people that maybe God is nudging in your heart to kind of go, hey, you know what? Now I got your attention, I want you to move closer to these people over here on the sides that will be there to pray for you. And do it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see what God would do with that. We have our offerings in the back. That's just our opportunity of worship every single time to go, hey, you know what, Lord? You know, you call us to sacrifice our tithes, our 10% to you. But really what God is telling us to do is that those resources, that God wants us to release those resources in order for those resources to be used into the lives of other people, so that we as a church body can continue to do the things, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, like Night to Shine coming up next week. It's gonna be awesome. But that allows us to move closer to our special needs community when we do those things. But whatever you do, don't just sit there. Go. So Father, whatever you're stirring within our hearts, whatever you're asking us to deal with, I pray, God, that we would not look away from that, but that we would lean into you, that we would move closer to you. And just sit in that maybe, and just ponder that, and why you want me to deal with that, or think about that, or process that, or whatever. For some of us, God, maybe we've already heard from you, and we know what you want us to do, and we keep saying no. And so, God, I pray that you give us the strength to go. And some of us, we're afraid to go because we've been hurt, we've been wounded by people, we've wounded other people, and it's just created this awkward, weird mess. So God, I pray that whoever is thinking those things, I pray that you just wash them in your love and your mighty grace so they can experience that. To give them the strength to be able to recognize those things, to understand that you still love them, just like the song that we sang earlier. You are a God of love, even when we mess up, and you keep working in us to strengthen us, especially when we say yes to you and we're willing to listen and to go when you call us to hear from you and to walk out and to do something that you called us to do. But whatever it is, God, I pray that we would not be deaf to your promptings, that we would desire to see you face to face. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.